Well, made a lot of progress on this American Girl doll dress, and for reference, the pattern we're using is McCall Crafts M6526, but we are ready to finish this off. So we have a strip of fabric here. We're going to use this for the bow in the front, and to reference what I'm talking about, let me show you the other one I made. Right, we're going to make a bow similar to this, just a little lighter and slightly wider, and we're going to do the Velcro on the back, and we're going to hem the bottom today. And that's on this dress right here. So we're very close to being finished. Let me get you on the tripod here and let's get this done. It's going to be gorgeous. I love the colors. And again, this dress. Okay. And again, this dress, it's going to be donated to charity for Bowl for the Cure. And it's an American Girl doll dress with the cancer ribbon on the bottom of it. I think that's pretty nice. Hope you do too. All right. So I think the easiest way to do this first is we are going to close the ends off on our ribbon, right? So we don't have any raveling. So let's just kind of tuck this in on the end a little bit. You could probably just zigzag it too, but I'd rather make it look a little nicer. And it's a small space. It was a little bit of work turning this. So the easiest way to use this is probably just to use some bias tape. That would be the easiest way to do this, but I wanted the pink polka dots to match on the fabric because I think the pink polka dots are really cute with that old-timey fabric. And that really is old-timey fabric. A really sweet 90-year-old lady gave me that fabric, so this is definitely fabric from the past. All right, so I've got this turned over. Let's go ahead and seam this so that we don't have any raveling. And trim our edges. That's good. And let's do the other side. And it is a little tedious tucking this in, but just a little patience gets you there. Just keep fiddling with it till you get it. Or use bias tape. My hands are small, so it makes it a little easier. If you have big hands, I would say definitely use the bias tape, right? It's a little easier for me to get a grip on it. Not that easy, but I can do it. Okay, we have closed our ends off. So now we are ready to pin our waistline belt and ribbon to our dress. I figured that'll be easier to do before we do the Velcro on the back, right? Because we can open it up a little bit better. So let's do that. And let's start by pinning the belt to the edge of the dress where the seam is, right? Let's do that. And I'm actually going to just fold it over slightly so we don't see the edge where I closed it off. And I guess I'm going to grab this from inside to make it easier. There we go. Let's get some pins here. Pin this. All right, and then let's pin the other side. And I'm positioning this ribbon half and half over the seam, right? I'm going to get that nice and even. I'm calling it a ribbon, but it's some fabric. I basically took a thin strip of fabric, folded it in half, seamed it shut, and that was inside out. And then I turned it right side out so that we have the pretty polka dots displayed. Okay, so now you can see that I've pinned it on both sides. So let's go ahead and seam right here and right here to fix this on. It's easier to do before you add the Velcro to close the back because you've got a little more space to open this up. And just be careful not to sew anything together on accident, right? Because you're working with a small garment here that fits an American Girl doll dress. I got into sewing American Girl doll dresses because we have a little friend that loves American Girl dolls. And she is actually a cancer survivor. And we have a lot of little nieces in our family too. So I'm planning to make doll dresses for our nieces and probably for our little friend. And I'm doing 2 dresses to donate for this charitable cause. Let's go ahead. Get this on here. Being very careful, we don't want to accidentally sew the dress to itself, right? That would be very easy to do, but regrettable. Although you can get your seam ripper out if you make a mistake. Easiest just to avoid having that happen, right? So take your time, feel your fabric out, make sure you're not overlapping anything, and then you're ready to sew. Thread. All right, so we attached our belt ribbon to each side, and now we're going to measure and see if we can get this exactly in the middle, right? You could actually do it to the side. Things don't have to be symmetrical, but I think the symmetrical is pretty cute. And let's go ahead and pin it. And I have this bunched up in the middle because we're going to turn that into a bow. Let's go ahead and pin it, and we will sew on both sides, right? So that our ribbon is fixed. Oh, here comes Meg. What's the matter? Did you miss mommy? Did you miss mommy? It's okay. Let's go ahead and shut the door, okay? Is that all right? Can I shut the door and you can lay down and be a good girl? All right. She says, you can't keep me away from my mommy. All right. Good girl. All right. So let's get this pinned. We want to position it where the seam is covered, and we want it even, right? So half and half. Does that make sense? If you have any questions, let me know. And you can kind of see that this right here is the middle of the dress, so that's where we'll stop. What are you doing, Meg? Good girl. Lay down. What a good girl. She is my buddy, that's for sure. Let's get this pinned. It looks like I have a little more thread to trim there, but it's all right, we'll get that. So far, this is my favorite design from this pattern. I just think it's so adorable. I mean, it's not modern looking at all, but I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. I like old-fashioned dolls and dresses. And you could position your bow to the side if you wanted an asymmetrical look, but so far I really like the symmetrical look. Okay, so you can see how we have this pinned, and we're just gonna go ahead and sew along here and along here, and then come over and sew along here and along here, and then I'm gonna show you after that how we're gonna make the bow in the middle, okay? So let's get our sewing machine over here, get positioned, and get our dress on here. We're gonna be very careful not to sew over anything that we don't want to sew over, right? Actually, this part's not too bad. And our ribbon is a pale pink with white polka dots, and I'm just using a white thread. Let's get this pin out of the way. Okay. Go ahead and cut this thread and cut the one underneath. And then let's go back. And actually, it looks like my ribbon slid just a little bit, so let's go ahead and go over this one more time in this one area. Threads. And let's get our thread trimmed underneath too. And reposition to do the bottom part. So we want to secure this on the top and the bottom. We just go forward and backwards to tie up our seam so it doesn't ravel. We can remove this pin, and let's just jump over. And pick up on the other side of the ribbon, on the left side of the dress. Okay, and let's go ahead and cut our threads. And to make this easier, let's take these pins out since it's anchored in place with the bottom seam. And let's go ahead and sew the top as well. And get the bottom. And let's get these threads where we jumped. You don't want to have any loose threads when you're making stuff for little tiny kids, because they can get, and of course I don't have any way of knowing how old the child will be that will get this, because it is for a charity, but it's good to not have loose threads because little kids can get threads wrapped around their fingers, right? Okay, so now we're going to make our bow in the middle. Okay, a couple more threads to cut here. And this is actually super easy because we're just going to fold it like this, right? And just going to keep it symmetrical. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here, right? So make sure we're symmetrical. Since we're doing a symmetrical bow, you can get creative if you want. And then see what I'm doing here? Can you see how I'm folding that? And I'm just going to make seams that will hold each layer intact. So let's pin that. So to do that, we don't need the top one folded down just yet. Let's go ahead and pin so that we do the first bottom bow section. And this part is super easy. Because all we're going to do is we're going to sew on either side of this section in the middle, right? Okay. Let's get on our sewing machine again, get all lined up. And this is going to be a vertical seam. So we're going to want to be really careful not to sew anything that we're not trying to sew, right? And make sure your bow is square to the waistline. All right, very good. Oh, looks like we lost connection there for a minute. I'm not sure what happened, but we're still here. Let's trim our loose threads. And actually, we'll trim the one on the bottom when we're done. It's easier not to reposition the whole dress here. Okay, so now it's reconnecting on me. Sorry. It doesn't seem to like me changing the angle, so let's be a little more careful about that, I guess, or I should be, or I'll try. And let's trim a couple inside threads here. And I'm going to go ahead and pin this here so it's centered. And I'm going to pin to the side on both sides so that we can seam down the middle. On the last dress, I did it this way and it made the bow pop up in the middle. We'll see if we have the same success with this one. Either way, it's going to be awfully cute. Let's get that pinned. All right, so now we're going to do another vertical seam. Position our dress, make sure we're not sewing any layers together that we don't want sewed together, and get centered in the middle of the bow. All right, I think I've got all my bottom layers clear here. Undo our pins. And let's see how we did. All right, what do you think about that? You could always add something else decorative here in the middle, like a flower if you wanted to. Totally personal choice, but that's our bow. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add Velcro to the back for the closure. Velcro is a very safe thing to use, especially if this could potentially be a present for a small child because they can't choke on Velcro, right? So I have a strip of Velcro that's a little less than 6 inches. Oops. And we're going to put the Velcro. So we're going to have it, one side will be the inside and one side will be the top, right? So let's go ahead and get that pinned. And let's just add one strip of Velcro at a time if it makes it easier. And we'll start by positioning this at the top. See if you can see what I'm doing here. Right, very good. There's exactly enough space here for this strip of Velcro. And it's a little stiff, it's a little hard to pin. So we'll just add a couple of pins to sort of loosely position it. And once we get it tacked on, we can remove the pin to make this all a little bit easier. And then just line it up with the edge, right? And you could use that stick-on Velcro, but I don't really like that very much, personally. All right, let's go ahead and sew this bottom strip on. Careful, don't sew your collar into your Velcro. You might have to kind of hold the top here just to make sure it's positioned. It is a little difficult to pin this to that. It's because of how stiff it is. Same thing, go forward, go backwards to tie off your seam. And get as close to the edge as you can, then pivot your fabric, your dress. And now we're going to go down vertically along the back line. Make sure our edges are still lined up. They are. Make sure we're not sewing any part of the dress to itself. Right? When you get to the end, go ahead and pivot and double check the position of your fabric. Make sure you're not sewing any part of the dress to itself. Very good. And I think I'll go back and forth here at the bottom just to secure it really well. Because Velcro has the ability to be a stress point, right? We don't want it to rip off when it's removed, when the clothing item is removed from the doll. It's not a bad idea to actually go over it once you got the Velcro on, to go back and forth over it a little bit to make sure, up and down the edges, not in the middle, to make sure it's really well adhered. Let's undo this pin. And I'm just going to go over this again one more time. Watch your fingers. Make sure our fabric isn't overlapping anywhere. There we go. Very good. Let's go ahead and cut all of our thread. Now we're ready to put the Velcro onto the other side of the back, right? So where did I put the other little strip? It's here someplace. Okay. That's funny. Oh, here it is. All right. So we're just going to add this other piece of Velcro to the other side. It's a little more challenging to pin this part. And I'm going to pin it from the top because I want to be able to sew on the top just so I can see where my seam is going, right? Just feel like you want to be sewing on the side that's visible, just to make sure your seam looks good, because this is going to be the top of the fabric where it closes. And you can always go slow too, that way you make sure your Velcro stays positioned. So go ahead and pin it sideways at the bottom. All right, now we're ready to sew this part. Pivot. And pull the pin out. sure your dress is positioned at the bottom over the Velcro. And pivot. And you can't see the Velcro, but you can feel where the Velcro is. So it's not that difficult to do this with the Velcro on the other side. Just take your time going up the top. And let me just make sure I have this tucked here. Pivot again. Let's go ahead and go over this one more time, just for stability. Just go over the seam you already did, right? Backwards and forwards to tie off your seam. All right, let's go ahead and trim our threads and let's see how our fit is. Excuse me. Sorry about that. All right, so now we have a closure on our dress. We're almost done. We are ready to hem the bottom, and we're just going to fold it over to the slightest amount, and we're going to do a seam. And I actually like to do 2 seams. I find that to be the easiest thing, and then plus I think it looks kind of nice. So let's actually turn it inside out. I think that would be easier. There we go. Now, one way you could do this, I've done in the past for hems, and this applies to hems even for real people clothes. You could actually do a seam and then use the seam for the measurement to fold it up and then seam over it again. In fact, let's do it that way. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And you don't have to measure with a ruler, right? Tape measure just makes it a little more simple. All right. So I only want to make a very tiny thin seam. So I'm going to line my fabric up with the edge, right? And then we're going to have a seam right down the middle. So it's going to be, I don't know, a little more than 1/8 of an inch, right? Just go all the way around the bottom of the skirt. Using your presser foot as a guide. just making the seam flat. So now we're just going to take and we're going to fold this like this, right? And I'm going to pin it on this side, and I'm going to sew on this side so I can see what the finished side will look like. So let's get pins. And I'm going to pin the pins facing in the direction we're sewing so that as I remove the pins, it won't be such a hassle with the sewing machine, because you're going to want to remove the pins as you sew, right? Because those will be an obstacle. See how I'm doing this here? Okay. I appreciate you all joining us today. This has been a really fun project. Just folding it along the seam to make a nice smooth edge with the equal height, right? So it's nice and even and smooth. It's the benefit of doing that seam technique for measuring. Okay, get a good grip on that. Just pin it every so often. You could even press this part to make it stay better if you wanted, but pinning works just as well. Almost got this. And the same techniques we're using on this doll dress could be used to make a dress for a real person, right? Just obviously be bigger, but literally same techniques. Maybe not the Velcro. Probably do a zipper and some kind of clasp at the top, or buttons. All right, let's get it on our machine. And I'll turn it back right side again, just to make this a little easier. Okay. So we are just going to sew right on the edge of the fabric to get this in place. And our needle down. Let's go ahead and take our first pin up. And I'm keeping my fabric kind of tight, taut, because that helps to keep it folded on the fold line. Watch your fingers. You don't want to sew fingers, that's for sure. And let's go ahead and trim our threads. All right, so we now have a doll dress. Look at this. Is this beautiful or what? And let's see if we have any comments here. Oh, hey, Justice. Hi. Thanks for joining us today. Hello. Enjoyed making a doll dress with me. I think it turned out pretty cute. Hope you like it. Thanks for watching.